Okay, first of all, thank you so much for taking some time to make the interview.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I would like to ask you some questions in terms of your performance, first of all, and probably it's about the leaders. How can they move from setting goals to solve problems in the way you accept on your performance?
Yeah. So for a lot of leaders, the way we've learned that we have to grow businesses is by setting goals. That you set aspirational goals, and that's what motivates your team to perform and do better. What I found in reality is it doesn't work like that. That goals don't actually motivate people. And we can even do this simple test, which is what I was doing today in the talk, where I was asking people live. When I asked you the question, what are your goals this year versus what puzzles do you want to solve for the business this year? It elicits and triggers a different response in people. Goals make you feel like, oh, you're going to evaluate me. It's this heaviness, a feeling of burden. Whereas the moment you talk about puzzles, people feel like, oh, I'm curious. I want to solve puzzles. When you ask someone, what puzzles do you want to solve for the company? The answer comes from this internal drive. And so in terms of what leaders can do, rather than just setting goals and telling people these are the numbers we want to achieve, talk about puzzles that you're setting for the team. I'll give an example that, if, let's say, instead of setting a sales target and saying we want to reach X million by the end of the year, you can set a puzzle. You can say, we want to reach X million, but I see a problem. I see that in the last 3 years, our sales grew, and this last year they've plateaued. Why might that be happening? And you can ask some guiding questions after this problem statement. Things you genuinely don't know the answers to. For example, is it that the market has shifted in some way, that maybe there's a competitor that's doing something and we've fallen behind? Or maybe the problem is that sales knew how to sell to the early adopter, but we haven't figured out the mass market and what message resonates for them. Or maybe it's our product worked for the early adopter, but we don't know how to sell to the mass market, and it doesn't work for the mass market. And so you can set the puzzle, and then you can expect your team to work on solving the puzzle and showing you how they're solving the problem.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So here we can talk about the consistent revisions. Yes, and based on these revisions, setting up which next problem we should solve.
Yes, exactly. By the end of solving one puzzle, you already start to realize what's the next puzzle I need to be solving.
Okay, good. How can teams stay responsible without OKRs, without strict KPIs and so on, but with such strategy?
It's such a great question, because I think we often think that accountability comes from a binary answer. That we think that accountability comes from being able to ask the question, did you or didn't you hit this goal? And it's a yes or no simple answer that you can't argue with. The reality is that simplicity is alluring, but that's not how it actually works. Because when you just set a goal and people, and what you're asking for is, did you or didn't you hit this goal? People have this incentive to show you all the good numbers, to show you, yes, I've hit those numbers, to please you by showing you those good numbers. What you want as a leader is to really know the good and the bad, to understand what are the bad numbers, but not just knowing the bad numbers, but you want your team to play detective and look at the bad numbers and go, I wonder what happened there. Is it that this is a problem? Is it an opportunity? To not just brush aside those bad numbers to focus on the good.
Okay. Probably that's why we are also should, let's say, see not only OKRs, KPIs as a good numbers, also to pay our attention on the bad numbers, on the bad ways and so on, and try to puzzle it.
Exactly. And when you think about something as a puzzle, in the puzzle solving approach, the framework that I talk about, it's 3 questions. How well did it work? What did we learn? And what will we try next? So the first question, how well did it work? It's very different from this binary approach of did you or didn't you hit this goal? I want to know the good and the bad. I'm inviting you to share the good and the bad, and we're going to look at how well did it work. The second question, what did we learn? You see so much accountability in this question, because I want you not just to regurgitate numbers at me and just tell me a bunch of numbers. I want you to really have thought about, what have you learned from all of that? In fact, I expect more responsibility and accountability when I invite the question, what have you learned? And then the last question, what will you try next? Again, this is an accountability thing, because you have seen the answer to how well did it work. You've looked at what did you learn. Now's the time for you to think about So what will you try next? And now, it's okay if you don't know the answer to what will I try next if you're stuck. This is where I can be of help. So as a manager, as a leader, you can give better guidance to your team as they're puzzle solving when they present answers to you in these 3 questions. And this is how you get accountability.
Okay, thank you for that. In terms of the examples, if your approach you mentioned in your presentation, can you provide some of them, best one you see in your life?
Yeah. So one example of using this puzzle setting and puzzle solving that I was actually talking about just now on stage was a company called Signal Oceans. I've been working with them for 2 years. And, when I started, they were using OKRs. And although they were tracking numbers, it wasn't changing results. So they hit some OKRs, they didn't hit other OKRs, but it wasn't fundamentally growing the business. And so we started using a puzzle setting and puzzle solving approach. So this company, it's in the maritime industry, and they have a data platform that people use in the maritime industry to match vessels, shipping vessels to cargoes. So what did we do for a puzzle? We looked at who's using our product, and we were saying, okay, why is it that only these particular users, tech-savvy brokers in the industry, are using the product? Why aren't others using it? And then we had some guiding questions. Like, is it that maybe we aren't meeting their needs? Maybe we don't even know what they need. And so the puzzle was, how do we figure out what they need and deliver those needs so that we can grow beyond just our current users? So that was the puzzle. And so then we started puzzle solving. So puzzle solving and the 3 questions starts with, your first attempt. So it's like looking at a Rubik's Cube and then you say, what will I try? So we tried the first thing, which is we thought that if to address these tech-averse users, one of the things that they do is to create lists. So we said, what if we made making lists a whole lot easier by making the filtering process much easier? So we'll make filters much easier. And then the tech-averse users will love it. How well did it work? Not at all. Complete flop. So why didn't it work? It turned out that people don't even think in lists when they're tech averse. Like, this is not their mental model. So what we learned was they think about, I'm working on this market. I want to know, how should I price in this market? Price high, price low? I want to know the supply in this market. Don't make me make a list. So what will we do next? This is the 3rd question. So based on how well it worked, what did we learn? We decided, again, having to filter, that's not the solution. It's not better filtering. It's not just optimizing filtering. We had to rethink it, like help them pick a market, and we give them a list for that market. So this is kind of how we think differently when we're puzzle solving by asking those 3 questions.
Okay.
Oh, and the results? We doubled sales, not just by doing this one thing, but we continuously took this approach. We doubled sales 2 years in a row. 2024 and again in 2025. And I started working with a team in 2023. So we got good results by taking this puzzle setting, puzzle solving approach.
Okay, very good. I also heard in these stories that you make your attention on the focusing, like focusing, for example, on the audience and so on. So does it compare with your approach you mentioned before? If you're talking about focusing on the audience, focusing on the market and so on.
Yes, definitely. I think when you're setting the puzzle, one of the things that you have to figure out is how well do you actually understand the market. And even in solving the puzzle, it constantly makes you realize that there's always more to learn about the market, that you could know those customers better. When we started, we thought we understood all the personas that we were building the product for. And the more we did design sprints, like in every single design sprint, we go like, whoa, we just learned so much about this user. That is driven out of the curiosity that puzzle solving and puzzle setting mindset brings in. You need that level of openness and curiosity to really figure this out with openness, as opposed to having an idea of mind of how you're going to solve it to hit whatever number. And I'm just trying to interview the user to be able to figure out how will I hit this number.
Okay. Thank you so much for this answer. In terms of small startups, for example, we are Flutter Pro company, and we're talking about mobile application development or just small startups, small product companies. Does this approach should work? And maybe you have some ideas or some, let's say, tricks how small companies, small startups, and for example, mobile application development companies should align this approach to their own.
Yeah. So for small startups, it's especially important to take a puzzle setting and puzzle solving approach. You know, when you are a small company and you use OKRs, there's a lot of process burden in terms of tracking all these different, is it red, green, or yellow? You're tracking against a lot of numbers, but especially when you're a small company, you don't always know, are those the right numbers even to achieve? OKRs, the mindset and lens around OKRs is a lens of, I know both the problem and I know the solution, and therefore this is what you need to achieve. As a leader, what you're telling the team is, I know exactly what you need to do. This is the right number, just go achieve this, right? Whereas the reality is, you don't know. Especially as a small company, what you're really doing is setting and solving puzzles. Your entire vision and strategy is your best guess at any given point. And some of it may be a good guess, some of it may not be an accurate guess. And the way you arrive at achieving that vision and strategy is constantly solving the puzzles of all the obstacles that get in the way, and how are you going to surpass those challenges.
Okay, thank you so much. How about fast tech project? How can developers, for example, stay curious without losing speed?
I think even for ourselves, we can think about puzzles, right? Very often, in terms of personal growth, we think about, what do I want to get good at? And we tend to set goals. Like, my goal for this year is whatever, to run a marathon, or, to learn this new coding language, or whatever it is, right? But instead of setting goals, what if you think about it from the angle of, what is the puzzle I want to solve? So one of the things that, I see really good developers doing is they have a passion for learning, and you can always ask yourself, what are the puzzles that you want to solve? And sometimes, it might be related to skills that you want to build, whether it's Docker, or, you really want to build your own mail server, whatever it is, right? Or your own cloud as opposed to using AWS. There's a bunch of stuff that you feel like, this is where I really want to build my skill set. Think about it as puzzles that you want to set for yourselves and then solve, as opposed to thinking about it just as goals. And when you start thinking about it as a puzzle, you start to feel this curiosity and this internal drive. Like, what is it that I want to do?
Okay. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you so much.
It was very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thanks for your question.